We're breaking down the best interior defensive linemen in the 2024 NFL Draft today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every single day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase.
Joe, this is a fun group to dive into because this is a positional class for the 2024 draft that I think our opinions have really started to evolve on over the course of the past 2 months or so versus like December, early January, start of the pre-draft process. I don't know about you. I had one impression of this defensive tackle class, and it feels very different now that we've kind of gotten into the weeds on some of these guys.
Yeah, I like what it has to offer. I don't know that it's loaded, but I think that there are answers in round one. I think there's answers in the second round, even some third rounders that I'd like. And I think when you have options in every round that make sense, that you feel like can have a role, some of them being impact guys, some of them being nice pieces of a rotation, I think you could find some help. And that's a good place to be because this interior defensive line stuff is really important in the NFL. You want that quick pressure in the face of the quarterback. You want guys that can get in the backfield and make plays. And this draft has guys that can do that.
Yeah. And the interior defensive line is one of those groups. It's kind of like the wide receiver on offense, where you have all these different body types that play the same position. That's really fun. There's like sub positions, but just like there's perimeter wide receivers versus slot wide receivers and the variance in statures that you get that. No greater contrast than what you had just at Texas, right? When you consider Byron Murphy at 300 pounds, 6 feet, and Tavondre Sweat at 6'4", 366. So I think we should probably acknowledge the top two players in the class are spotlighted in the right-hand third here. If you're watching on YouTube, it's consensus is Johnny Newton and Byron Murphy in one order or another. I don't know what order. I think I know what order you have them in. Yeah. I don't think I've told you what order I had them in, but I did both of their deep dives earlier this week.
Oh, man. I have them very closely rated. Let's just put it like that.
As do I.
Yeah, they're close. They're close. Real quick before we get into, we're going to lead off with Johnny Newton from Illinois. One of the fascinating components of this entire defensive tackle, interior defensive line conversation is like how many market resetting contracts have went down at this position. We've been kind of talking about like these top of the market thresholds. The $20 million defensive tackle is alive and well with not only what Chris Jones, of course, got, but Christian Wilkins, Justin Matableek, Quinnen Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, Deron Payne, Dexter Lawrence, Javon Hargrave. Those are all like in the last calendar year, guys that get over $20 million APY at defensive tackle. So there's a need to find some value out there across the NFL.
Yeah, so getting rookie contracts is a really valuable proposition, especially when you consider neither Johnny Newton or Byron Murphy seems like they're going to be a top 10 overall selection. So now you're getting out of the top 10 picks with the rookie wage scale. And again, really friendly value for the next 4 years. So let's start with Johnny Newton from Illinois, who probably has the most overall. Would you agree he has the most impressive pass rush palette and resume of any interior defensive lineman in this class?
Oh yeah. I firmly believe that. And he checks a lot of boxes. We don't have the athleticism yet. I think would he have a foot injury or something? Like maybe he's going to work out at some point.
He's going to test though in the next 2 weeks.
I'm pretty unconcerned with that because I watched him play at Illinois and I know he's a dynamic athlete, but I think coming in at 6'2", 304, Maybe there were some thoughts that he was an undersized guy, but 6'2", 304, 32 3/8 on the arm length, 9.5 on the hand size, and then production over the last 2 seasons, 22.5 tackles for loss, 13 sacks, 3-year starter, the 2023 Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. This guy's been making a lot of plays. And so
over 100 pressures the last 2 seasons combined as well.
Yeah, man. In the context of the Illinois defense too, right? Like, it's not like he's surrounded with dudes that he's rushing with. It's not like they're an amazing unit that's always ahead in games and they get to tee off and just, rush the passer. This guy's
right.
Legit.
Yeah. I think the other thing that impressed me with Johnny was when you dove into his profile, and they played in 25 games the last 2 seasons. He's played 723 and 749 snaps. Like this dude that doesn't leave the field.
Yeah.
And you contrast that with Byron Murphy. Texas rotated guys a ton. Now they had some more depth. They felt a little bit more comfortable with going a full possession where Byron Murphy's not on the field. But to know that you have a player who's acclimated to playing in 13 and 12 game seasons over 700 snaps, well, that in itself has the potential to be a really nice additional feather in Johnny Newton's cap. And, oh, by the way, he will turn 22 right in time for roster cut downs in August 31st. He turns 22. So this is not an older rookie,
right,
in the scale of things as well. So there's a couple like ancillary parts of his game in addition to this really robust pass rush palette with how he wins with his hands. I think his hand counters, initial hand counters, he can win over the tackle. He can win in the B gap. He really forces you to take half a man when you attack him from a pass rush perspective. So like that IQ of setting up his pass rush wins is there as well. And that all paints together this really, really nice picture for Johnny Newton.
Yeah, hot motor that's cranked up, loose and flexible when he kind of has a chance to corner and get around a greased rush angle. He's got it, man. He's got the goods. And like you mentioned, a lot of different ways that he can beat blocks. The pass rush repertoire, I think, is unmatched in this class. And, he's got a lot of core strength about him too. Like, I think he's a firm player that, not easy to move with single blocks, and he can win with quickness and athleticism, but don't get it twisted. He's got plenty of power as well.
Yeah, I think that I'm glad you mentioned the cornering. That was the other thing that stood out to me about Johnny was I felt of all the guys that I've had a chance to watch, his ability to turn tight corners really stands out as well. And that's what kind of helps him take these penetration opportunities and turn them into actual pressures and getting home on the quarterback. He's really got a good nose for the ball too. Like so like his tackles, he's had a couple of instances where he's knocked the ball loose at the point of contact as a tackler as well. So just like little football IQ elements of his game too that really popped to me when I watched him.
I thought if there's a growth area for Johnny Newton, it's like I have no questions about his athleticism. He's extremely explosive. I thought maybe some of the snap anticipation to get off the ball quicker, because like when he goes. But like we start anticipating the snap a little bit more, boy, he can be really, really disruptive, or even more disruptive than he already is.
Yeah.
So Johnny Newton, Kyle and I are in. We are fans. I have a first-round grade on Johnny Newton. I would guessing you do. Okay.
Yes.
So easy guess there.
Outside of about the first 10 picks, you feel like you're probably getting a really good value for Johnny.
We're going to talk about Byron Murphy out of Texas here in just a moment, so be sure to stick with us. Folks, you shouldn't have to worry when you're looking to buy tickets for your next big event. Well, you don't have to, because Gametime is here, and it's the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They have killer deals on last-minute tickets, all-in prices, a view from your seat, and a best price guarantee. Simply put, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. The app is awesome. I was looking at a concert that's coming to Charlotte in November, and I logged in, and they offered me a great flash deal that was a heck of a price. And so I went ahead and purchased those tickets for the wife and I in November. And courtesy of the flash deals that are really, really cool, easy to navigate. And they also send that ticket right to your phone, so you don't have to dig through emails to find it. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Okay, so Johnny Newton's in the books, which brings us to Byron Murphy II from the University of Texas. And he checked in at just over 6 feet. He checked in at the combine at 297 pounds. And boy, oh boy, did he showcase some high-tier athleticism. If you're worried about the size and stature, I think his weight's like 24th percentile, and his height's lower than that. He has 32 and a halves, 32 and 3/8 on the arm length.
Yep.
And then like all of his explosive testing, be it the jumps, the short, the 10-yard split, the 40-yard dash, so like 85th percentile or better. Like very highly dynamic player to complement being an undersized talent on the inside.
Kyle Crabbs, he was 18th on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. Some metrics that blow my mind, and one that's going to be very, very near and dear to your heart. 18 miles an hour on the gun for the radar gun.
Okay.
So that's amazing, right? 375-pound power clean. That's amazing.
Yep.
His front squat is 400 pounds. 400-pound front squat.
So let's apply. We'll apply my college degree in kinesiology here. For a second.
We go.
You think about front squat and core strength and balance, and you contrast that to you watch this 297-pound dude take on double teams, and he anchors like you would never believe that somebody who's 297 playing inside can anchor against the run, drop the knee, and split a double team. And it makes a lot of sense to know that there is that much core strength and power in his frame. And then you think about the fact that he is 6 feet tall and he leverages it. Who's playing under his pads?
Nobody.
Who's ever playing underneath his pads?
It's unbelievable.
So that checks out to me in a big way.
400 pounds. That's not a back squat, folks. It's a front squat. Your core is, and it's full depth. I saw the video. The hip crease goes below the knees, my guy. He's an absolute monster. I like Byron Murphy. He's my number one defensive tackle. Dense, squatty, thick build, which we talked about. And it's the leverage. Like he maximizes his power at the point of attack because nobody's under his pads. Like we can talk all this nuanced football stuff all day long. Trench battles in the NFL is still about leverage, and nobody out leverages Byron Murphy. Oh, by the way, he's an explosive athlete. That's twitchy, sudden, flexible. I like to me, everything's built off of that. Like his ability to defend the run, nobody's moving him. His ability to rush. It's all of those traits. They work together, and I'm just a really big fan of what he offers. And I think there's versatility as well to play the 1 and the 3.
Yeah. The last 3 seasons, he's played more than he's played 120 snaps in the A gap.
Yeah,
in 3 consecutive seasons, right? Like so that versatility exists in his game, so much so that like I think he played in the A gap more often than Tavondre Sweat did. Think about that for a minute,
right? That doesn't make sense on paper, right? Yeah,
but I don't think Byron Murphy has the hand utilization in the pass rush that Johnny Newton does, but I think he's a better run defender. I think he's more consistent penetrating gaps. I do think he's more explosive, and I think the ceiling is there for him to develop into every bit of a pass rusher. He has a better pass rush win rate than Johnny Newton by about 4.5% this year.
Wow. I think that the structure of those defenses could play a lot in it.
The structure of those defenses and playing in the Big Ten versus playing in the Big 12 certainly has something to do with that as well.
Am I mistaken? But I feel like Johnny played a fair amount of like nose tackle. Like I felt like that Illinois defense was like a lot of odd fronts, which is really tough to rush. I think as a down lineman. For
what it's worth, the resource that I have has Johnny Newton playing 70 snaps in the A gap in 2022, but only 5 snaps in the A gap in 2023.
Oh, okay. All right. So Byron Murphy, I think we the motor also pops there. He's nobody's going to outwork him. Nobody's going to out leverage him on any given snap. When you think about growth areas for him, like 1 year starter, that's kind of strange to me. You maybe wish that there was a little bit more robust of a resume of playing time. And then I thought there were a lot of instances where maybe he got a little bit out of control when penetrating and like come to balance a little bit and finish more, because I think he would make like the box score would be a little more kind to him if he was a little bit more under control when resetting the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Where one of the traits that I really liked about his game, it kind of worked against him at times, but like when he uncovers off of like a blocker and accelerates to the quarterback, it's like eye-opening. The amount of accelerate, like that 1-6 10-yard split shows up when he is uncovering off of a blocker because the quarterback has moved off his spot or is flush from the pocket, and he's got to like flip the switch and go into pursuit. But that level of explosiveness, even as a shorter player with a lower center of gravity, coming to balance in those instances, I would totally agree, is an area of his game where like just a little bit of meat on the bone that you could have just that much more consistent impact with. I agree with you 100%. And then the other thing is, I think he does a really nice job of persisting with his feet through contact to be able to sustain like his forward momentum, and he converts to power very, very well. Right. So like he plays with his power and he plays through contact fairly well, but he could get off of it faster if he had more clubs in the bag for getting hands off of his frame. So like it's really impressive that you're able to run your feet and push through momentum and like kind of continue to work across face or walk somebody back, but like get rid of them and go. And that will give you more opportunities to finish plays as well.
Did he remind you of anybody when you watched him? I know that's a heck of a thing to put you on the spot to ask.
Yeah, you sure did.
A little Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, I think that's the appropriate stratosphere of players to invoke here. Just the quickness and low pads. He's probably a better run defender than Grady Jarrett was coming out of college.
I'd agree.
So it's like, okay, like if he goes to a spot that has like some edge rushers that will really put guards on an island with him, he's gonna be a monster. And like his sack production will be far beyond what it was at Texas.
Well, fingers crossed he's not the Christian Wilkins replacement for the Miami Dolphins. You know, I would hate to see that. Would hate to see that for sure. But would actually honestly be a great choice. I think when I mocked him, I think I picked him for the Dolphins whenever I was I believe you did as well a couple of mock drafts ago. All right, so I think these are the top two. I like the other guys. I think these are pretty clearly the top two, both carrying first round grades for me. But there's some other talent available this year, and we want to talk about that here on the other side of it. So be sure to stick with us. The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel's making it even more exciting to get in on the action, because right now new customers can get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use on betting on the tournament, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
So now the question becomes, who is IDL3? And I think this is where I crowdsourced inadvertently about who was IDL1. I heard from a lot of people. You and I both feel it's Byron Murphy. I also have Byron Murphy as IDL1.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just think that the floor with the run defending being so much higher, and then an athletic skill set that I think can give you every bit of what Johnny Newton has as a pass rusher is what it is for me.
I'm part of that same group text that you you crowdsourced at least those people, and they did not agree with us. So that's interesting.
Right. They like the pass rush profile of Johnny Newton, which I totally get, and I think that's a flavor preference between those two.
Be a heck of a pair, huh?
Yeah,
heck of a pair.
But IDL3 is where this class really opens up, and I figured we would kind of leave it open and let you share your thoughts on IDL3, and I can share my thoughts on IDL3, and we can go from there.
I think it's Kris Jenkins out of Michigan, 6'3", 299, 34-inch arms. So like he's got more length than any of the players we've discussed to this point. Son of Kris Jenkins, 2-time NFL All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, big-time leader for the undefeated national champion Michigan Wolverines. I think there's so much to like here. I mean, physically has the goods in terms of length, quickness, flexibility. I think he can penetrate, get up the field, very disruptive, firm anchor against single blocks. I love the motor, love the lateral movement skills. He's a guy that I thought got better and better throughout his career at Michigan and played his best football in some of the biggest moments for that team. I think my big things with him for growth areas are just like, wish he had a little bit more knockback power with his hands. I think he's still developing his pass rush repertoire a little bit, maybe a little bit more contact balance, but the length here with the athleticism, with the trajectory, with the pedigree, that has me pretty excited by him as IDL3.
I felt bad for him. Felt like every game I watched, he was getting double teamed at a disproportionate rate, like a lot of attention given to him, which I think really robbed him. You talked about how he handles single blocks and what his length allows him to do. And I thought he had really nice lateral acceleration out of kind of that lock peak, find the football fundamentals to be able to process where the play has developed, and in instances in which there were runs in between the tackles where he could really disengage and flow to the ball. I thought that's where his best work showed. I guess my concern here with Kris Jenkins is just the pass rush profile as a whole. Felt like he only really broke out some of the more exotic counters later in games when they were up big. I think he has 20 pressures in each of the last 2 seasons, so it's not there's not a lot of volume getting to the quarterback here. Pass rush win rate, Pro Football Focus had him at 11% versus Johnny Newton was 15 and Murphy was 19. So like it is a significantly lower profile in that regard, but I think he's a high floor player. So if you're looking for somebody who can at the very least play the early downs for you and be really good at controlling the line of scrimmage, as long as you're not going to play him in positions where or structurally where he's going to face a lot of double teams, I think that does put him in a position to be the best version of himself. And he played over the tackle a ton. Like he got not necessarily out in the C gap, but like head up on offensive tackles at like a base end. He did that quite a bit for Michigan as well. So I like that added versatility that he brings. My IDL3 is T'Vondre Sweat, though. Very different kind of player. Would love to hear your thoughts and concerns, and then I can go into why I do have him as IDL3.
I have not completed my eval on Mr. T'Vondre Sweat, so you say things and educate me and the listeners.
So T'Vondre at 366 is a big old fella who plays surprisingly high amount of snaps. He's played more snaps in each of the last 2 seasons than Byron Murphy has. He played 503 snaps this season for Texas. In short yardage situations, it's not just I'm going to be unmovable and just occupy. There is a penetration ability here at 6'4", 366 that you don't necessarily expect for the quickness in short yardage. I think Kansas State tried him like 3 times inside, and he just got into gaps. It wasn't just I'm going to walk my guy backwards. He does have the ability to, if you get one-on-one rushes for him, he plays with pretty good pad level. He's not going to be like Byron Murphy. I think that was the hardest thing to reconcile with his tape was the pad level of Byron versus his pad level at 6'4". It's just a different ball game. But he also has a lot of power, and he didn't test particularly well from like, I think he had like a 1.8 10-yard split, and his vertical jump was in the 20th percentile or so. So it's not a case like Jordan Davis where he cut a bunch of weight and he came into the combine and he blew the roof off Lucas Oil. And that's now your expectation for what that player is going to be athletically. He is what he is. And I think that surprised us a little bit when he didn't weigh in at first in the pre-draft process. And then he comes to the combine in his pro day and he's 366 and 367. It's like, oh, okay, like that's what you're on the roster at. So that's where you were. But he has, I think his wingspan's like 88th percentile wingspan, just this massive radius, in addition to the amount of strain that offensive linemen have to play with to have net neutral at the point of attack, just because of his stature. And he is 6'4". Like it's not like one of those 6'6", 6'7" big guys. You think about, what was it, like Daniel McCullers, right? Just all 6'8" of them inside at Tennessee and then going to the pros. It's not that kind of frame. It's more bowling ball. So you have all of this strain to have a neutral stalemate. And then what he does really, really well is he'll utilize his hands and displace you using your strain just as he's absorbing it to discard and uncover in gaps. And because of his wingspan, he's got a large ability to separate himself. And then when he uncovers what he doesn't have in lateral range and explosiveness of some of these other guys, he has the ability to just influence because of how big he is and what his reach is.
Should have known Kyle was going to fall for the big old nose tackle. So, there's a special brand of nose tackle. Like if you're in the Hargrave, Reeder, Vea, Dexter Lawrence, like the Ron Payne bucket, like you're a special player. And you think, is that aggressive for Sweat? Or, I mean, he's huge, dude. Like he's bigger than those guys.
So I think the mock draftable page for T'Vondre Sweat has some really good comparables just from an athletic profile standpoint that I would shout out. Grover Stewart's the third highest comparable. And Grover Stewart is getting 13 per. He came through the combine at 6'4", 347.
I just wish Sweat was that. I don't want him to be 366.
Well, the other guys on this list that I think are applicable, Paul Solii. You remember big Paul Solii out of Utah? Played 10 years in the league. I think he finished in Carolina. He's in Miami for 7-8 years. 6'4", 345. Phil Taylor is on this list. John Jenkins out of Georgia is on this list, 6'4", 346. Eddie Goldman's on this list. I don't think that's necessarily from a size perspective. Eddie was lighter than that. But I think about Paul Solii, Grover Stewart, John Jenkins. Those kinds of players had meaningful long-term NFL careers and seasons in which they were playing 500-plus snaps. And I think T'Vondre Sweat can be that, yeah. Do I think he can be DJ Reeder? I think that's probably a little ambitious of a forecast.
Yeah.
But I think he will manhandle just about every one-on-one situation he gets at the next level.
Shout out Eddie Goldman, signed with the Falcons today, coming out of retirement. Let's go. We both liked him coming out of Florida State, so see if he can get it going.
Kendrick Ellis on that list as well. A lot of names.
How high you picking T'Vondre Sweat?
I don't think he's a candidate for the first round just because the pass rush profile is not there. And even though he plays a reasonable amount of snaps and there is some nice pass rush collapse the pocket power elements to his game. And look, you saw it with Philadelphia with Jordan Davis. And Jordan Davis had the athletic profile. You say, oh my God, he's going to be able to play all this playing time and he's going to be able to win as a pass rusher because of how athletic he is. How's that working out? Right? It's just not. From a volume perspective to justify a first round pick. I think middle of the second round is about where it would start to become appropriate to have the conversation of the role, the snaps, the third down role versus the early down role, what it allows you to do. I do think he's athletic enough that he doesn't just have to be a base. Like if you're a base nickel team, I think you can put him in the A gap in nickel defenses too. But when you get to third and or long and late down and distances,
yeah.
There it is. Thank you for that. Stole that from Joe last week. Long and late downs. You're not going to have them on the field just because you are going to want somebody with some more juice. So I'd say middle of the second round is, I think, where it starts to become appropriate to have the conversation for Sweat.
If you're joining us on YouTube, let us know who your third defensive tackle is. I'd be surprised if anybody didn't have some order of Newton and Murphy 1 and 2, but I think that's a bigger conversation for number 3. So give us your feedback. Let us know who you think it is.
And that is going to do it for us here on Locked On NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your day. We're out of here.